Okay. All right, I think I got it. Oh my gosh, this has been crazy. Thank you guys so much for joining. Oh my gosh. And we're streaming. Yay! It happened. I pressed the buttons. I don't need Aiden. I'm a free woman. I can click the things like the best of them. Great. Oh, we got 2 minutes. Whew. How you like them, apples? I mean, I guess we're already live, so I guess we're starting. So I guess we'll start minutes early. That'll be good. Well, I needed time to figure it out. All right. So that being said, we're going to start 2 minutes early. Hi, I'm Nicole. Welcome to the Intern Breakroom, which I think is a great title for this thing that we have developed. I'm very happy with it.
It is far better than Wednesday Wind-Up, which is what it was pitched as when I was last on. So
yeah, man. There's less violence, which is good. I feel like a wind-up does include, like, you know, a wind-up's more like an aggravation, though. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay, great. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I guess let's go around and we'll just say like hi, and then we'll like say some letters about teams that we're on. So I'm Nicole Hemel. I am at Nonviolence International. I'm a volunteer now. It's like second semester intern, and I'm in charge of the NVM project, which is Nonviolence Methodologies. I'm also working on the U4C, which is United for Change project. And I also do these things on Wednesdays, which is like a lot of videos. It's something that I do. So I'm done. Daniela, who are you? What's going on?
So I'm Daniela. I'm a new intern. This is my first semester, and I'm working on outreach. So I'm working on the newsletters that we send out. Also, I'm doing PR, public relations, for the New York graduate plan, which has been mostly my main project that I've been focusing on lately. So that's exciting and fun.
Awesome. And then I know like Sarah and Mary Martha, you guys are returning guests, which is excellent. I'm very excited about the returning guest situation. But please refresh our memories. Who are you? Sarah, who are you? What are you doing? What's going on?
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm also a first semester intern. I work on the Arizona Research Center. So I've mostly been working on the online advocacy journal that we're constructing. And I'm doing one of Nicole's nonviolent methodology research projects as well. That's what I've been up to.
Yay! And Mary Martha, please refresh the audience's memory about who you are and what's going on.
Hi, I'm Mary Martha, also a first semester intern. I'm on the creative team. My focus is on video content creation. So creating videos for the YouTube channel and the Instagram page. Some of those will be like intern testimonials or videos about like speakers that we've had or people that we've that Nonviolence International New York has interviewed. And then some of those will just be our own like creative project with creative license to promote the research that y'all are doing.
Very cool. Yeah, it's like we have like a full in-house situation going on where it's like we're creating this machine that like just produces research and then like, you know, gives it to everybody and like shares like really efficiently. So, okay, cool. Yes. All right. So just to catch up on people who don't know how Wednesdays work is like I do a lot of stuff in the morning, and now is like when this is my break room. This is like my time to chill. I got my coffee that I've had all morning and I haven't been able to drink it. But here it is in a beautiful bowl. Cheers, Mary Martha. Yay!
Cheers. Yeah.
Oh, what a great first topic of conversation.
But I have kombucha.
Yeah, I was gonna
ask. So much
Like,
healthier.
what are you drinking? So like what kind of kombucha is it? And is kombucha worth it? Should I drink it?
Okay, if you ask me, I am a very pro kombucha person. I love it. I drink it all the time. This is apple ginger kombucha, and it's like one of my favorite flavors. They came up with a new flavor lately, but it's been sold out for like the past 3 weeks. So every time I go to the supermarket, I look for it, but it's never there. But we'll try again next week.
Okay, so have I been messing up with the kombucha? Because I feel like I've tried it and I didn't like it. Like, do I need to get like flavors? Like, are there ones to stay away from? What's the kombucha?
I can't deal with the
political environment?
sediment.
Yeah.
I think you gotta find a flavor you like. My first forays into kombucha were very unsuccessful because I was like, oh, I'll get stuff that I'd like as a juice. So I got a lot of like the cranberry kinds of ones, and I was like not into it at all because like you're expecting it to be sweet and then it's not because it's kombucha. But then like once I moved into like, the ginger and like lemon kinds of ones that I was already expecting them to be a little acidic, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like, I think you got to find your comfort zone within the kombucha realm.
There's definitely some that just taste too much of vinegar and some flavors that just don't mix. I remember I tried an apple one and I was like, ooh, this is probably going to taste like apple cider, which is like my favorite thing ever that we don't have where I'm from. So whenever I'm in the United States, I'm always drinking it like a lot. And then I tried it and I was like, I cannot possibly drink this. This is so bad.
So that's a good segue question. Daniela, where are you from? Where they don't have kombucha? What's going on?
I'm originally from Costa Rica, but right now I'm in Mexico. But I do college in the United States. Yeah,
okay, great.
So a lot of moving.
Yeah. So like before COVID, were you like in the US and are you back home in Costa Rica now?
No. When COVID struck, I was actually doing my semester abroad. So I was in Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was very funny. We just, I went to sleep and because of time change, there was the announcement that there was now going to be like travel restrictions because of COVID. So I woke up and the program was like, this program is now canceled. You all have to like fly home immediately. So my mom lives in Mexico, so I came here, and then Costa Rica closed its borders and there's basically like no flights, so I wouldn't be able to go there.
Are you being affected at all by the new ICE regulations? Sorry, I don't mean to bring up a stressful subject.
No, I am personally not going to be affected by it because my school is doing hybrid. So I can even take up to only one class in person, but three of my classes are in person.
Oh, is she frozen for y'all as well?
Yep.
While she's coming back online, I can just, for those who don't know what I'm referencing, the administration has released a new, I guess, what is it, a regulation or a order that students who are international, and whose schools have transitioned to online because of COVID have to leave the country. So you have to be taking at least one in-person course, which is really scary because presumably the schools who haven't opened up yet, have decided to go fully online, are doing that because they don't think that they have the resources necessary to keep their students, faculty, and staff safe during the pandemic. And I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I'm talking about elementary school all the way through college. Every time I walk into a school, I get sick. Like I can't hang out with kids without getting a cold. I can't go into a college classroom without getting a cold. So I imagine something as viral as COVID. I mean, it makes sense that you'd want to make sure you have the proper precautions before inviting people to return.
Like a lot of things too, I feel like this new, I guess it's like a new way that they're processing the visas. It kind of came out of nowhere, and I guess we'll also see, what like courts think.
Harvard and someone else, another university, are suing the government over this.
Yeah, because I mean, you can't just, it's fairly interesting, right? Because like I think a general principle of life is like you can kind of like if you're really assertive, you can just do whatever you want, and then they're taking like that approach like with governing and thousands of people's livelihoods and educations and I don't know, and for the good of like all of us. But Daniela, you're back. Welcome back, Daniela. Yay!
Hi. Sorry about that. The Wi-Fi here, I don't know why, has decided to become unstable, but it seems to be working fine once again.
Yeah, these things happen, man. You just gotta roll with it. It's the internet. But you were saying, so you were your mom's in Mexico, so you went there, and your program is going to be hybrid. So you're. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, unfortunately, some people like in the bigger class, like most of my classes are very small because French and philosophy don't really have a lot of people taking them. So it's safe to social distance. No shade towards French or philosophy. They're like my areas of study, but yeah. So yeah, there's like 5 people in some of my classes. So it's pretty safe distance and easy to hold them. But yeah, the people that are in business or pre-med or all of those, and there's a lot of international people in those classes. All of their classes are online. So a lot of them don't know if they have to leave the country or what they're going to be able to do with their leases because they've already been signed. So they're all kind of navigating that right now.
So Daniela, how much more time do you have on your degree?
1 more year.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
Fingers crossed for both of us.
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be. I mean, a lot of people are leaving, I think, for the year. And I know, like, some people probably don't have like an option, with like whatever situation they have going on. So I definitely wanted to try to stay on since I can, and like try to support like the second years because it's a 2-year program. How are your other, I guess, like classmates? Have you heard from anybody like with COVID and everything?
So right now there's like a really big mess because many of them don't know if they should go back to the school at all. These are my US friends. The international people are obviously like, they don't even know if they can stay or not. They don't know if they should go back right now. Housing just resulted to be a mess. So I don't know if I have secured housing anymore on campus. So we're also looking at that. But a lot of people are going to be none of them have said that they want to take the time off because we're all rising seniors and everyone just kind of wants to graduate at this point. But at least a lot of them will be doing it online.
Yeah, I know this has become really complicated. I'm like Nicole doing a 2-year master's, but I'm just about to start mine. And my school for the first time ever introduced the like deferment. It used to be that if you got in, you had to go in this year. And because of COVID, they introduced deferment. So, and even so, I think a lot of people have kind of waited and been like, all right, like, if only because the job market is destroyed. I know a whole bunch of people who are going to do masters and stuff. I graduated in June, actually. So yeah, I know a whole bunch of people who are like, oh, maybe I'll defer. We're like, maybe I won't. Because like, where are you going to work in politics? Like, unless you already have a campaign job for the 2020 election. Basically, everyone I know was like, well, sucks. Guess I'll get a degree, especially because I went to school in Canada where far few of us went into debt to get an undergrad degree. I know a whole bunch of people who are like, well, I'll go get my like Masters of Arts in like Russian and Eurasian studies or something. And I was like, cool, why not? Live your best life. So it's been very interesting approaching this because I did undergrad in Canada and just moved back to the US. The conversation is so different because most of my friends who are Canadian are like, oh, well, I took a fellowship, or oh, I'm going back to school, or it just made sense because of what the job market looks like. Everyone was like, well, okay, like I wanted to take this course or I wanted to do this certification or whatever, so I'm just going to go do it now because whatever. But in the US, you just have to have a really different conversation about, yeah, obviously immigration status, but the economics of like, college is so much more expensive. Does it make sense to pay for Zoom, or like, you know, what are you paying for at that point if you're not gonna be on campus and have those same experiences?
Well, not only that too, I was definitely trying to figure out, like, I moved to New York and like I brought like me and my partner and we just like, you know, did it the whole shebang. And now it's been a lot like, well, I was working in finance and maybe like what's the plan? Like how confident do I feel about, you know, finishing my degree right now? Or should I defer and just like go back to working, you know, so that I can like survive? I do, yeah. I do think like I plan on 2 years. I really don't want to like take another year, you know? So that's kind of been, and I've been like, I don't know, I guess like having like a lot of faith that like I'm gonna learn a lot. And even though the experience is gonna be really different, I wanted to kind of be present, you know, like for like whatever is going on in this way, I guess. So that's kind of been like my thing. But like it is kind of, you could go either way, you know, it just depends on like your situation. But that's so interesting in Canada how you know, it's like, well, okay, I was gonna, you know, I wanted to do this, but maybe I felt like it was, now that it's not the right time to enter the job market. And like entering the job market is much more like a survival decision, I think, than like a career decision. That is true now that I say that. Yeah. Okay, so I was curious to hear about Sarah, like what you're like, what's right? So you're working on the nonviolent methodologies thing, right?
Yes,
and
I am.
yeah, and so everybody for that project, so for the research side of it, everyone's like coming up with like their own like thing that they're researching, and it's basically based off of you kind of like your interests, but then also like what have we like kind of not covered, and it's recent, so like as of like 2019. So like who are these peaceful people working in these conflict areas? And I'd love for you to share like anything that you have discovered, or if it's been difficult to like find research or whatever. Just what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing good. So I know we've talked about this, but I'm working on this project on like Indigenous land defense in the US and Canada. That's kind of where my interest is. So I'm really trying to decide how much I want to narrow down the scope of my project. I started talking about the Wet'suwet'en in British Columbia, so there's a company named Coastal GasLink that is attempting to force a pipeline through the lands of the hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en. And that should be defended both under their law and under like Supreme Court of Canada decisions. However, the RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, like the people on the horses, they showed up on their land and were like, nope, you have to let this pipeline through because we told them yes. And the hereditary chiefs were like, you can't do that though. It's our land. We have never ceded it. It is still protected under this Supreme Court decision. And the Canadian government said, sucks. So they sent out this call for like solidarity actions, basically. And in Canada, it was a huge deal. In January and February, people camped out in the Canadian winter on railroad tracks and halted rail traffic across Canada in some regions for over 2 weeks. So these are like huge protests in Canada. In British Columbia's Parliament building at Victoria, people took over the legislature building. I went to an occupation at MP Carolyn Bennett's office. She's the Minister for Crown Indigenous Affairs in Canada, but her office was in Toronto, so people camped in her office overnight until she came to work the next morning, and it was like, we're going to talk now. So yeah, I started there because I had already had a bit of familiarity with it, but I'm really trying to see how similar protests have been, because these are pretty much anti-pipeline protests, and I'm curious how similar they've been to actions in these states. I know that the Dakota Access Pipeline was very recently, like literally earlier this week, halted. So that's really exciting. And I think it's worth seeing whether, different First Nations and Indigenous peoples have used similar strategies and how effective they've been. Because I've definitely never seen anything like rail blockades until I moved to Canada, and I was like, wow, this like actually works, and it stopped like billions of dollars of business. And I was like, I've never heard of anything like this in the States. So I'm curious how much overlap there is, if we have stuff to learn from like stuff that Canadian First Nations could learn from American tribal associations and vice versa. I think there's just a ton about like different nonviolent methods there, and I'm really excited. I know that we haven't done a lot of projects on like Indigenous affairs, so I think it will be also a really interesting addition to the body of work at Nonviolence International. So yeah, I've been having lots of fun researching, and it's also nice to research something where you can really see stuff happening, which is so exciting.
Yeah, it's cool that like, because when it comes to like methodology, I feel like it can, the whole exercise that we're trying to do, a part of, what we're trying to do is like really keep things like recent and like alive, so by looking at like things that happened last year, you can see like kind of history in the making, and then learn and be able to connect like different threads of what's going on, and I think like one of the biggest things is just making sure that the thing that you're working on, these people are doing a kind of similar thing, or I can like pull best practices from them. So that'll be really good to kind of get all that stuff in there. And then after Sarah's done with that, with the research side, then the analyst side is going to go through and then pick out like, so for instance, like the railway blocking things, that's like one of Gene Sharp's, nonviolent actions that you can do. So that'll be like, we'll categorize it and then we'll do a thing. We'll have a link to the literature, but you'll be able to see like, okay, theory, action, practice. Yeah. Yay. We can organize the information. Cool. So I do want to mention, I don't know who is watching this, but I do have in my little corner here access, since I have the power of the technology, to see the chat thing. So if anybody does want to say anything in the chat, you can, and I will see it. And if it is like a thing that is good to share, then I will share it. In our first episode, right? Ariel did make a comment, and so I didn't see it then, but I remembered it. And hey, Ariel, I saw your comment. Thank you for saying hi and stopping by. So I fixed it. Justice has been served. So yeah, okay. I'm talking too much. I am aware of that. So if you guys ever like want to like ask me things, like I'm not really in charge. I'm just like hanging out. But like, so okay, me and Mary Martha were just like talking really briefly before the thing about how her background is in theater, which is cool because I also have a background in theater.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So so Mary Martha, like what happened? Like you were in theater and like now you're here. Like what's that process? Like how are you gonna use it? Like what's the dream? Hey.
I'll try to make a long story short. I did theater at Brown, and I was like, it's really weird because I think maybe starting in 8th grade, but definitely in 9th grade, like in high school, I like had my whole life planned out. Like I wanted to go to Brown University and major in theater because they have an open curriculum, so I could like study my other interests, because I also really like writing. There's like a lot, I like other things too. But also be able to like take as many classes in theater as I want. And I did that, and I did it all the way through, and I graduated and I moved to New York City because I was like, now I'm going to be an actor. And then I started going to this like film acting school, just because I started like thinking about money and like how, how I was going to make a living and stuff. And the more I did it, the more I realized that that Brown had changed me. And the things that I really liked about theater at Brown was we were always having these discussions about why are we doing, I was a producer there as well and a director, and I was like, why? And we were always talking about, why are we doing this play? What effect could it have on the Brown theater community? What effect could it have on the Brown community in general? What effect could it have on the Rhode Island community that often comes, or the Providence community that also often comes and sees our shows? And we were just talking about our like social impact. And I started to realize that in the real world, unless you like have a lot of money, or I guess fame or whatever, those conversations are few and far between and felt a little superficial. And like, I was talking to a lot of people who didn't even, like, they knew so much about what was going on, like on Broadway and with the Oscars and all that stuff, but they had no idea what was going on with the world. And I was like, that's what informs art. And it just made me realize that I was like, wow, the things about theater that I had grown to love weren't necessarily the theater itself. So I took a huge like journey in a very short amount of time, which I'm still on, trying to figure out, well, how can I recreate? How can I do, like, I always wanted to do a job that I was passionate about and not care about like how much money I was making other than like surviving. So I was, trying to figure out where can I do that? So that's one reason why I ended up here. And because I've been in school for media, because I realized that I really like storytelling and that translates really well to editing video. And I was like, well, everyone, every political campaign, nonprofit campaign, everyone needs videos. And so here I am now.
That is awesome. And I think makes a lot of sense for because sorry, because I share a lot of the same feelings about, I guess, like acting and theater, and we're making, basically you're communicating an idea or a feeling or a person's life or a situation in a way that you hope is like honest and useful, Mm-hmm. And I'm very interested to kind of see like what the future of art in this performance way looks, because
on a very
it's weird, right? Like
on a very, like, on a personal level, this is interesting. Like, I just find this interesting about myself. So I used to like to create very political art, right? But because we, like, no matter who you are right now, we are inundated with politics and just social issues all the time. I no longer like to watch political art. Like, people keep recommending TV shows and stuff to me, and I'm like, I'm watching Doctor Who right now. Like, I need, like, when I watch entertainment, like, I really, really need a break. And I feel like if that's where I'm at, then it's really hard for me to like invest my whole soul into creating a piece of art right now. And maybe I'll return to it eventually, but right now I'm like, if I'm gonna keep creating things, I want to be able to invest my whole self in it. And so maybe it doesn't need to be that kind of entertainment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's especially just for me. I really admire, like, literally all my friends are actors and directors and dramaturgs and everything, and they're making incredible stuff. And of course I watch their stuff to, support them. But that's like where I'm at personally.
Yeah. That I feel like, I mean, if we're both in the same organization, so it would make sense that like if we had like a similar background and like we were here in the same place, like, oh yeah, that's kind of like what I found too.
Similar journeys.
Very cool. And I think it's really neat to kind of like have everybody kind of see like, people coming from, I guess, like we do have like a lot of poli-sci people, right?
Mm-hmm. And some philosophy people.
Yeah, and philosophy people. I actually did want to ask Daniela, like, so with your philosophy studies, what I took a little bit of philosophy when I was in my undergrad, because because it was like an alternate like literature course that I could take. But like aside from like, is there like a focus? Like what does it mean to study philosophy? Because I feel like I'm like, okay, I know these Greek people and that must be it.
So it's actually very funny that you mention a focus, because when I first started my undergrad, I did some philosophy in high school, and that's when I was like, I love philosophy, like I want to study this, and I don't see myself like studying anything else. And then I spoke to my advisor because then I want to go to law school, and he was like, yes, a lot of people that study philosophy then go into law school. So I was like, okay, then all of this makes sense. But I went in and I was like, I like political philosophy. This is what I like. I only want to discuss this. I only want to read this. But then in my school, you have to take like a class in the different fields. So you have to take ethics, you have to take history of philosophy, and then you have to take metaphysics and epistemology. And at the beginning, I was like, oh, I hate metaphysics. I don't know why I'm wasting my time with that. And now my favorite classes that I've taken from philosophy have been in metaphysics. And now I'm like, oh, like, what am I doing? Because this doesn't translate to what I want to do later on in my life. But it's definitely very interesting to think about. So yeah, and going off from what Maria Martha was saying about how she gets recommended TV shows, everyone's like, oh, you study philosophy, you should watch this TV show, you should watch this movie. And I'm like, no, I want to turn my brain off. And my sister used to make fun of me for it, because she'd be like, you're reading this very dense like Heidegger article, and then you turn on the TV and start watching like Gossip Girl. And I'm like, yes, I need to turn my brain off. Like I just need to not think for a little afterwards. But yeah.
Can I
Okay,
just
so
yeah,
no,
do you mind? Yeah, just something about what she said. I feel like what I'm hearing in your anxiety about like I like this and this, I feel like there's a little, for some reason, there's a little bit of, or a lot for me, of shame in changing our plan and like what we originally wanted to do. And
yeah,
it makes it really hard. And part of that shame comes from this illusion that there's some ladder that we're supposed to be climbing up. And I think that might have been true for our parents' generation, that you did like join a company and then eventually you got promoted, blah, blah, blah. But now it's actually more beneficial. It's more beneficial to change companies and to accept a higher position at another company. And that's just one example. But there's this illusion that you need to know what you want to do, like while you're in high school, while you're applying to college, or at least while you're picking your major. And then when you graduate, you use that knowledge. But knowledge is knowledge, and we use it. Like I use so much stuff that I learned in theater in like when I'm talking about politics, which is insane. Like I when we had that webinar in Russia today, I studied abroad in Russia studying theater, but theater in Russia is so political. And so I learned so much from that, from I think a different perspective than someone who was just learning about politics in general in Russia.
That does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting.
Oh, I was just gonna interject about the like different paths sort of thing, because I feel like I came at this from a very different perspective. I entered college undecided, and then I majored in chemistry for a while.
Whoa.
I majored for 2 years, and then I was like, I'm not having fun anymore. And that's a weird conversation to have, to just show up at a bunch of departments and be like, I took physics and calculus and chemistry, and now I want to do anything else. I have no prerequisites for anything. I'm just here. What do you think? And it was hard to move from, I started a bachelor's of science and moved to a bachelor of arts, finished in political science and history. I still minored in chemistry. I still liked some of the courses I took, but like I reached a point where I was like, I don't want to go to class anymore. And at a certain point, you just got to be like, this isn't it. Like
Do you think that background has informed you in ways that your peers weren't informed about, like the subjects you're studying?
For sure. I think, I mean, oh my gosh, it's hard to understate how grateful I am for the math background, and also just like the rigor of the math and science courses I took moving to political science, because lots of those kids weren't required to take any math or science courses that were like really substantive. And so doing like data regression and stuff, I was like, oh yes, all of those like terrible Excel sheets I did for chemistry were so useful when I moved into political data. And that was just not a background lots of other people had. And they were like, how do you know how to do all this stuff? And I was like, because I suffered through inorganic chemistry, a hell that I cannot describe. Like, but you know, it really did give me different skills, and it also made me really appreciate what is like good like academic writing, because academic writing between science and social science and like humanities fields is so different, and I began to really appreciate when you read like a great news article that could summarize something scientific for a social science or humanities or just general kind of audience. It is really amazing to read something that's so well written and be like, yes, you like summarized something really complicated and technical and made it approachable. And I think that can be really hard if you do the same field for a long time, because you get used to talking to people who do what you do. You're like, oh yeah, well, we all obviously know what extra institutional means of protest are. But like, do most people know what that means? Like, probably not. And so switching fields for me really helped me understand like what it means not only to know something, but like how to talk about the stuff you know. So yeah, I'd actually like to do a lot of stuff in political communications in the future, especially because it's changed so much with the internet and like, oh my gosh, I was talking with a friend of mine about how funny it is to think that like in 2012, both the Romney and Obama campaigns ran Tumblr accounts for their campaign. And like, even that is already obsolete. But like, just the fact that like, that's how fast political communications are moving and changing. And yeah, I don't know, there's so much out there. And I'm really glad that I switched from chemistry, but doing it, I felt so dumb. I like showed up at the chemistry advising office and I was like, I'm gonna drop this class. And they're like, you can't get a major if you drop that class. And I was like, yep, I have accepted that, but I just can't go anymore. Like, I just gotta do something else. I'll figure it out. It's fine. Like,
I'm gonna say that is like so powerful though. Like whenever you're like, I know there are consequences, but I don't want to do this. Like a friend of mine, she just she ended up getting a master's degree, but she was supposed to get a doctorate, and then she was like, I don't want a doctorate in this. But like, and everybody was like still kind of on her case about it. And I was talking to her, and she was, I was really glad that she talked to me about it, because I was like apparently the only person that was like, good for you for like knowing that and then just like doing it, because your life is precious. Like you don't, you know, don't spend all this time doing this thing that, especially if you try stuff so that you find out whether or not you want to do it. And like, why would you want to have a degree in something that you don't want to do? Side note, I did study mechanical engineering for a little while, and just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should, you know? So I had the same experience where I was able to like kind of figure that out maybe like after a year and a half, and I was like, I don't want to do it. I'm out. Goodbye. Mary Martha, what?
I was going to say, switching late though, like, I feel like it's really intimidating, because then you feel like, this is how I feel here a lot of the time, especially when I'm talking to the research analysts. I'm like, I feel like I know about politics. I feel like the dumbest person in the room right now. But that if you can learn to be okay with that feeling and like learn, and I'm not saying that I'm here, I have not like reached that like level, but I'm trying to learn to be okay with that feeling and learn to not take people correcting you or explaining things to you as being condescending, but to take it as like you have this incredible opportunity to like better yourself, but then you also have this knowledge that they don't have that you can like add to the conversation as well.
That's true. And you can get kind of in your head about it too, where you feel like, oh, everyone it knows that I don't know this thing they're talking about. Nobody knows. It'll be fine. You know something.
And they
don't
also
know.
don't care. And if they do care, then they're like, then maybe they're being a little snooty. That's their problem.
Yeah, then they have their own, you know, shenanigans where they're like, oh, I better make this person feel bad because I feel terrible, you know.
Yeah, that's like not your problem.
That is the guy in your tutorial you don't talk to. That guy
Yeah.
who's like, well, actually, I really think Hobbes meant this. And you're like, cool, Hobbes died 400 years ago. So that, like, I care, but not that much, you know?
I can see there being a lot of actually guys in philosophy.
Do you guys know about the Actually show? Have you seen that?
It used to be on College Humor, right? Or is that not what you're talking about? Oh yeah.
That is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. We do have a lot of actually guys in my classes, and then they come with this very, very obscure text that only like deep scholars know, that they like came across by accident. They make these very, very specific questions, and the whole class is like, that's not what we're talking about though. What is the point? And then the professor's like answers it quickly and then like moves on, and then they try to keep going, and it's like, no, please stop.
It makes you wonder about, is the intent to add something to the conversation and to like enrich your peers, or is the intent to show off that you happen to know this like random thing that you've probably been saving in your back pocket and been like, I guess I can pull it out here?
This is philosophy bro flexing, and it also happens in poli-sci all the time, where you're just
oh my god,
yeah, you'll just like the vaguest thing will come up and they'll be like, oh, I just happened to be reading like this book that's 200 years old and deals in this very specific topic and has only been published in like 2 languages anyway. And you're like, cool, we get it. You have no friends. Like, it's cool. Whatever. Like, you know, sometimes they're interesting, but like 95% of the time it is philosophy bro flexing. And you're like,
oh, it happens in film and theater too. And there it's even more frustrating because a lot of times it's like based around opinion. Like, well, so-and-so was like the greatest, whatever. And you're like, okay, thank you for your opinion, bro.
I feel like, yeah, it's like that. The theater one is always like, let me tell you about this drama in the Stanislavski clan and like who was right and like who was totally wrong. And it's like a soap opera with everybody that studied under Stanislavski. That's basically how it works, in my experience. But you like studied in Russia, so I think you probably know more.
No, I probably not, but I do know about the feud. Where did you study theater? Sorry.
AMDA, and I went to the one in LA, not the one in New York. So like, I think I can use the New York stuff.
I have a friend who went to the one in New York.
Yeah, that was like the first one. I went to the one in LA because they have a great stage combat program. At the time, it was like a lot better than the New York one. I was like, I want to kick stuff, so I can kick stuff now. Okay, I wanted to ask Daniela like a while ago, and then feel free to like segue. I know you have some like information, but so what's metaphysics, and like, you know, why did you hate it? And then why do you like it?
So the section in my school is metaphysics and epistemology, and metaphysics is kind of like the study of what is real, like what is reality. And when I was like really young, I just thought it was like completely pointless. And I was just like, why would I waste my time like thinking about like multiverse theories and like all this stuff when there's like political philosophy that you should be like thinking about like applying it into the real world and like what makes more sense, and ethics. So I was like, this makes no sense. It's a waste of time. And then I got into it and I was like, I was very wrong. Like, it is very important and it can apply to a lot of things, and you can develop like a lot of ethical points from it. So I was like, oh. So then I'm very glad that I took those classes because they really made me open my eyes, especially epistemology. I've only read a little about feminist epistemology and how it's like epistemology is like what is learning and like how you learn and all these questions. And then I was like, oh, this has a lot of implications that actually are very important in politics as well. So then I'm very glad that I was proven wrong. It's very interesting.
Is that a part of, oh, I don't know, this is probably a dumb question, but like one of the only things that I learned about was like, this is a chair, but like, it's not a chair. Is that the chair thing?
Yes, it is the chair thing. I haven't taken any classes that focus on the chair thing. But yes, it is part of it.
So
Excellent.
Are there multiple timelines, and are we on the darkest one?
I think 2020 is the darkest timeline.
Oh,
Yeah.
what was that? Was that here where we were talking about how like in the future, like people will study 2020 as its own period, and then people will have like degrees and like write dissertations like on January? Okay,
I mean,
it wasn't.
somebody made that joke.
Yeah, no, but I definitely see that happening.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I definitely saw some post about, I don't know if any of you took any of these like AP classes, but I definitely saw a tweet that was like, can you imagine like the document-based question that's gonna be for 2020, like
Yeah.
on like one of those AP like history exams? Someone was like, I feel so bad for kids like 30 years from now that are gonna get like, explain this phenomenon of 2020.
Since because of the Black Lives Matter movement, I've been seeing a lot of posts and reading articles and documentaries about, stuff that they didn't teach us in our history class. And of course, this is like something that we've all already been talking about. Like as soon as you go to college, you're like, oh my God, there was a gay rights movement. Like I didn't even, literally never mentioned in my high school. So,
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how 2020 is going to be condensed, or how this period is going to be condensed. Like because right now we're living it, so everything feels important. But like, okay, there was a pandemic.
What is the
20 years
Hill like translation from like the Texas, textbook company that everybody gets?
Yeah, there was a pandemic 100 years ago that like my grandmother's parents were like alive and like lived through, and my grandmother, but she was young. But I've never heard about it until now. No one talked about, no one was like, oh, this was happening, these wars and this pandemic. No one talked about it, or at least in my education.
So then I also want to like bring up something that we were talking about earlier about how kind of like you never arrive, and there's always like people that know more than you, and like hopefully you're in that room where everybody knows more than you. I think that part of like growing up and is realizing that there's like this whole history, and like kind of all of it's important. Like a lot of things are really important, and I don't know most of them. And it is like, I'm always constantly frustrated with myself because like, one, I have to peel back the layers of like whatever kind of, indoctrination, of easy narratives, right, that we have like growing up. And then two, I have to like reinstall all these things. And there's never, like there's so many, like there's just so much really important, impactful. I can see the world that I live in being shaped directly by this experience that happened to this person at this location. And then like why society is shaped in like certain ways. And I hope that we can all like have like a lot more maybe like patience for ourselves to realize that like we're never going to be done, like learning like what happened. And just kind of, I guess, like do our best and try to have like a daily like history practice or something. Because I definitely feel a lot of FOMO about like, man, I don't know anything,
Yeah.
But
it's so good that you feel that, because on the other end of the spectrum, you have, I'm sorry, I keep bringing it up, but you have the Trump administration who had a pandemic playbook and threw it out. And that wasn't from 100 years ago. That was from a couple of years ago, and they had no interest in that history. Is it even long ago to be considered history? It's good to feel knowledge FOMO.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, because I think it comes from like humility, right? Just like as a general, like
Sure.
is it like a general
Yeah.
like human level of humility of being like, you know what, I can probably learn from a thing, or from anybody. I can ask around, and ultimately, I think you do have to have a lot of confidence in order to like delegate and like make decisions to the best of your ability, and then just hope that you'll never be perfect, and you can come up with a plan, and you're like, I did my best. But it's interesting to have. And I think like we'll have like a lot of competent individuals like coming out of this experience. I mean, it's a constant experience, right? Like it doesn't have like a beginning or an end point, right? But like people that are in school, you're able to see that a lot of people who make decisions about things that are important don't have any humility or any knowledge FOMO or any relationship with like things that happen outside of their heads.
But is that what gives them the confidence to be in the leadership position?
I think possibly, right? I think it's like both of those things. So it's like, confidence mixed with humility. How do you do your best and not be like insane or like not effective?
Yeah.
So that being said, we're going to talk to you about ways that you can be not insane and effective. And we're going to do that through the medium of Daniela informing us about what's going on with the graduate plan. Hey, Daniela, what's going on?
Yes. So it's so cool. Part of my job in outreach has been working with the New Year graduate plan. And I had originally seen it on the website when I was applying for this position. And it's so exciting, like seeing the development. So it's this really cool plan for people that have backgrounds or interest in international affairs and political science. And it's a 3-month originally long program, but you can extend it to 6 months and work as an intern at Nonviolence International afterwards. But it's so cool because in the first month, you learn from actual UN diplomats about how to become a diplomat and like what goes on in it. You can see general assemblies and look at forums from the United Nations. So you are learning all of this. And then you learn actual leadership from Nonviolence International. And you have some other very cool intensive workshops where you're learning about how to lead people. And then right towards the end, like the 3rd month, you're gonna participants get to work on digital fieldwork. So they take all the knowledge that they got from the UN and from Nonviolence and their own research projects, and then they get to apply it like in the real world. So it's so cool because you are actually learning so much about all these things that we were saying and about like switching your career and kind of like going from where you are and then being able to apply it. So it's like a very greatly built program that just like really teaches people, which is so important right now. And back to what we were saying about how like so many people are now going into masters or like doing like more education because of the job market. Like being at lunch now, I think it's just like destiny because it's really gonna like enhance careers for people and really gonna teach them about like this very specific aspects that are like so important in the field.
Yeah, so it was Sarah, right? Not this Sarah, different Sarah. Was showing me like the week, the breakdown of like every week, so like the 3-month version, right? And it's really comprehensive. And I'm really excited to be a part of it. So if you're in civil society track, that one, that's me. Civil society engagement. It's very exciting. Last semester I was able as an intern, and so I think that the intern program is going to be changing so that like we're all focused on the graduate program as like a really good like engine of making sure that like everything that like we've been learning, I think as interns, like they're going to get to have all of that in like a really like condensed format, because like I definitely, I don't know. It's been a wild ride. Like, with the great thing about Nonviolence International New York is that you can basically like go as far as you want, like they have all these partners and all these ways of, getting your knowledge FOMO on, right? You're kind of like, okay, cool. I feel caught up enough. And then I'm just going to like be really connected to like the meetings that I'm having and the people that I'm meeting. as well as I can, and then just like start, working with the knowledge that I have thus far. And again, like, you never really finish. Like, I feel like you never really arrive, but you're definitely more prepared. Like, I'm very grateful for the experience that I've had so far as an intern, and to like really pass on all that knowledge. Because I mean, at the beginning of the semester last year, I definitely was not able to, for instance, like coordinate with the person in charge of NGO CSW and create like, I think like 500 volunteer positions at the end of everything, and then like fill every single one of these slots and like come up with like like specific breakdowns. But I've received such like good training like from other areas of my life that I didn't realize I could completely apply to something that could help CSW specifically, and then like civil society and all these amazing activists and like amazing women that were there for CSW, or were going to be before COVID-19. So I think I'm also excited to figure out, like, I'm glad that we have something going on right now. Like, is it going to be, what's going on with like online and like with it being in person so far?
Yes. So the New Year graduate plan was originally going to be both like online and in location. Obviously due to COVID, it has been for now fully remote. But everything, so like the major aspect that changed was actual field work of you participating like with a civil society. It's going to be turned into digital field work, which I think is also an incredible opportunity, because from what I've been learning in nonviolence is so much like advocacy and fieldwork is now being done through social media. Like the way that you get the word out for protests or for meeting or for information is literally through social media. Like I follow all of the newspapers, all the very niche little groups. I have them all on Instagram. People use Twitter. So that's going to be a great way for people to learn how to use the tools that we have now and how to apply them efficiently. So I think the online program is also like great because you can do it from the comfort of your home. And especially with the new ICE proclamation, people are not going to have to worry about visas and coming to the States and all that. So I think that's a huge bonus point for it.
Yeah, I think I'm really pleased with how, because I think I take it for granted too, right? Because when we were doing the spring semester, like we were on top of it. Like we got the guidelines and we were within the local New York office. Like we were shut down like right before I think they made like the whole New York like rules. And so we went to doing things remotely, I think pretty quickly. And there are a lot of people that I'm friends with on my graduate program. All of their internships, they flew away into the COVID-ridden air. And that's really too bad, because I'm really impressed with like how we just moved everything online like super fast. And I'm like, oh yeah, isn't everybody doing this? No, they are not doing this. A lot of things are just shut down, and I there's so much going on. Like there's so much going on. I feel like every single weekend, like there's like some new important like giant webinar, like way to connect with civil society. They had the Poor People's Campaign that we partner with, like 2 weekends ago. And it was just so good to be able to kind of like get into the rhythm and get connected, because I do think that also online is, because especially in international affairs, I mean, this has got to be the future of civil society interactions and organizations. That way we can move away from like, New York being the hub of everything, and like having everybody fight as well as they can exactly where they are, and like bringing their unique like stuff going on. So I think it'll be really interesting to be able to see like everybody's like where they're coming in from, and like how we can discuss, like we'll be able to see with our morning meetings and catching up with everybody here at the like regular internship as we have right now.
Under normal circumstances, doing an internship, I know I'm not in the graduate program, but an internship with nonviolence, it would have been like probably too much for me on top of what I normally do, because I normally have to nanny and I have another job, and then I also have school. But right now, because I find myself, with like tons and tons of time, but also not able to do anything with, like everything I do with that time has to be in my apartment, like my studio apartment. And for me, just having my other internship, they just email me things that I need to do and then I do them. But nonviolence, I'm only on week 2, and it's been so great because we have these like daily check-ins and meetings and like a lot of face-to-face communication with people. And I didn't realize, like, I forgot how healthy that was and how necessary it was for me to even just like not only do good work, but like function. I think that the way that y'all have transitioned online has been very effective, and it doesn't feel like being just online. It feels like the best of both worlds. Like I still get that interaction, but then I also get to set my schedule a little bit with my, like the time that I have to do my work. Like if I have to work late at night, that's okay. It's not like I have to leave an office or something.
Yeah.
Definitely, 100%.
And I definitely think it's worth having these kinds of opportunities because, very much like Nicole was talking about, I got in touch with my boss from last summer to write me a recommendation letter for something. And I was like, oh, like, how are things? And he's like, well, we can't have any interns because, like, they can't onboard anyone. That process, like, wasn't moved online. And so this internship program I did last summer that probably had 200 people or something in it has no one. And it's just like, man, that like really sucks. And so I think it is going to be a huge mark of who transitioned online successfully. And also just it's great to have digital skills and Slack and like
I had no idea how to use Slack. Like I'm so glad.
I had used Slack before this, but I know when we did like the orientation at the round that I was on, Marcellus was like, yeah, who's used Slack before? And it was literally just me. And everyone else was like, I'm sorry, what's a Slack? Like, what? And so I really do think it will be useful also just from that angle. I do think that so much of this work is going to end up moving online. And I think it will also just make it far easier to engage with civil society for groups that successfully move online. And I'm excited for people to get both like, you know, the knowledge, but the technical skills of like working in this kind of field, because that's definitely not something you're going to get like a traditional school kind of environment.
Yeah, that is like the story of that is what civil society do. You know, we are, I mean, it's so cool. I feel like I keep on saying we, like I didn't know what civil society was until like last year. But that's how it works, baby. Like, I mean, it's amazing. Like, you know, in the absence, you know, because government has this thing that it has to do, right? And then like academia has this thing, and there's like all kinds of laws and, you know, limitations and like inner working politics. But because like we're lean and we're mean, we're really able to get in there and pave the way. And that way, when people graduate, like from the graduate program, or like when you guys like leave for your internship, even with like the small, you know, smaller amount of like, you know, information that you've received or whatever, like we're going to be able to be a support system for the other places that we go and work, and be able to already navigate and kind of understand, especially like different, you know, partners that we're seeing. Like some people have like technological limitations, and in general it's intimidating. So to be able to be that person and be like, hey, listen, if you don't feel comfortable, I can kind of take this on. And, you know, being able to kind of like teach and see how to like, you know, build resiliency to this entire like human system in various places that we work.
Yeah.
So I'm super glad about that. But Daniela, did you have any other information for us before we wrap up?
I was just gonna add that I think that since we were talking about technology, that both the internship program that we're in right now and the graduate plan are both like so user friendly, because they use like Zoom, Slack, and Google Drive. So it's like if you have an internet connection, you have to participate. It's not like an exclusive like technology that like you have had to have tons of experience with before. And like we covered it in orientation. We go over it. So it's just kind of like this nice community that like teaches you this very like friendly system so that you can.
Speaking of technology.
I know. No one is immune. We are all, you know, one Wi-Fi low connection away.
And that is the one drawback. But I think it is bringing up an important issue, how important like internet access isn't a luxury. It's a necessity.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what is it? I think it's like COVID is like I think it's crisis too, is like the like instigator, like it makes everything faster, you know? Because I think there's been so many like young people too, like that are in school. I think it's like a quarter of like the US like children, like minors don't have access to internet. So like I can't go to school. And it's really funny, like that some people like don't know that. And even if like you offer them the information, they're like, oh, right, but all the kids have internet. And you're like, no, they don't. No. Hey, Daniela, you're back. We're just talking about the internet.
Yeah. It's like it goes off for like a minute and then comes back. So I don't know what's going on.
It was good, like for a while. Like, I mean, it only happens really like once every 40 minutes, so that's good.
Yeah, we'll see. There was like apparently like a storm or something, and the whole not a tower. I don't know exactly what it is because I'm not the most technological person, but from the internet provider has been faulty ever since. So every once in a while it kind of acts up. But it had been good for the past week, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, great. I'm glad you're back. We're gonna wrap up. So yeah. I don't think we need to have like everybody like do like a sign off. We need to sign on. But yeah, I think we can just. Oh, am I frozen now? All right, you guys. The internet is like done with us, so let's get out of here before it all explodes and we destroy YouTube somehow. Okay. So yes. So that has been the Intern Breakroom. I'm glad we have a great name. I'm excited about the name. I feel like it feels right. Like we're interns, we're in a break room. I feel very braked. And you know, we had coffee, we had good discussion. It was really great to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, and I guess we'll see all of our live stream people on the next time that we all meet again, which maybe it will have new people, we'll have old people, we'll talk about it. I'll come up with a schedule. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and see all of you live streaming people later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.